Now what I want to do is talk a little bit about the conversation that's been taking place in the community. I think we're all aware that there are a number of people that are concerned with any of the taxing districts, including the state, the cities, and the county, accepting ARPA funds. What I wanted to do is kind of give you a perspective. I actually agree with many of the concerns or the objectives that I've heard. The only difference is I don't believe that the path that they want to take is going to be effective. And that's really the only difference. So we're receiving $32 million. And we're going to, if you think about this, $32 million out of the $1.9 trillion in ARPA, and that's with a T, 1.9 trillion, represents 0.0000168 of the allocated funds of ARPA. That's 0.00168. Now remember, this is the fifth stimulus package. It's actually 5.5 because the third one had kind of a A and a B. The 1.9 trillion that was approved for ARPA added to the other 3.7 trillion of fiscal stimulus makes these numbers even more insignificant. From an inflation standpoint, we also have to remember that the Fed's balance sheet has grown to over $8 trillion. That's with a T. So I hear a lot of conversations about inflationary ramifications of the county or the city accepting $32 million. And I put that in a backdrop of the other additional stimulus and the bank's balance sheet, the Fed's balance sheet. And it's almost incomprehensible for me to accept an argument that the county accepting $32 million will create any kind of an inflationary impact, or, said differently, our refusal of $32 million will somehow mitigate inflation in our country. Other supplemental measures taken by our federal government, interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve 150 basis points, initial stages of our pandemic, extending the IRS deadline twice for filing taxes, suspending student loan payments and interest accruals twice, delaying tariff payments, expansion of unemployment benefits, HUD temporary assistance programs, eviction moratoriums, direct lending programs, liquidity programs for corporations, municipalities, money markets, mutual funds, commercial paper. Focusing just on the $1.9 trillion of ARPA is kind of what is in front of us today. Let me give you an example just of the 1.9 trillion, because these are astronomically big numbers. The state of California, just in the 1.9 trillion, and then just under the coronavirus state and local funds, the state of California is receiving $27 billion. The state of New York is receiving $12.7 billion. The state of Texas is $15.8 billion. The state of Florida is $8.8 billion. U.S. territories is $4.5 billion. Tribal governments is $20 billion. Counties in Idaho, Ada County is receiving $93.5 million. Canyon is receiving $44.6 million. Bonneville is receiving $23.6 million. Our neighbors in Washington State, Spokane County is receiving $101 million. That doesn't count the city. Snohomish County is $150 million. King County is $438 million. If I go through the entire list of counties, there's 69 pages, single-spaced listing of the money that's being distributed under ARPA just for the $350 billion for the state and local recovery. That's 69 pages. Now, there are going to be some communities that are going to reject it, but Kootenai County rejecting $32 million won't move the needle. If we go through the cities, there's 28 pages. Boise at $37 million. Chicago, where I used to live, is $1.9 billion. A small suburb of Chicago, Oak Park, is $39 million. San Francisco is $454 million. Denver is $167 million. And again, there's 28 pages of these. Now, I've heard the argument that there's a accepting the $32 million on behalf of the county is going to be a piddly $177 per citizen, which is a small amount. However, I also have to put in perspective that each citizen of Kootenai County is indebted $90,000 in the federal government. So by rejecting the $177, it's not going to increase, it's not going to impact the $90,000 we're all in debt. And if you look at it from a taxpayer standpoint, that taxpayer, I am a taxpayer like most of the people in this room, and we eliminate the children, my debt portion is nearly $250,000. Now, all of us as elected officials we're local elected officials. We're kind of peons as it relates to the overall federal government. And I view my focus is property taxpayers. If we refuse this $32 million, the obligations of the financial burdens associated with that $32 million are going to fall on the backs of local property taxpayers. I don't want to pay any more property taxes. I pay, I think, too much. And to load another $32 million of obligations of things that need to be done onto the backs of property taxpayers is unacceptable to me. Because I know for a fact that the debt that the federal government has incurred, which I don't believe they should have done in the first place, and it was irresponsible, I'm going to have a share of that responsibility no matter what. The only thing that I control, and I think the people around this desk, is how much are we going to place on the financial backs of property taxpayers. So that's an overview. There is going to be, I think, a lot of comments from our community. And again, I agree with the objective. There has been federal overreach. There's no question about it. And I am disgusted like anybody else. My responsibility as a local elected official, and actually I don't have any responsibility, it's the Board of County Commissioners, is to focus on the ball, which is how it impacts our property taxpayers. There is a legal opinion, actually I shouldn't classify it as a legal opinion, but the Legislative Services Office, which is representing our legislators, and they're supported by the Attorney General from a legal standpoint, issued a memorandum on January 10th that walks through what has been classified as strings attached to ARPA and addresses what strings are attached. If you haven't read through this yet, it's only about 5 or 6 pages. I encourage you to do so you can intelligently respond to requests or concerns or criticisms of why we're even contemplating receiving funds. I've read through this. I've talked to city council members on the city of Coeur d'Alene, city of Hayden. I've talked to commissioners in the 5 northern counties. It appears as though, like Kootenai County, have concluded from a legal standpoint, this is not Steve Matheson, this is the legal people saying that they are comfortable that the strings are not what is being portrayed in the community. I have to rely on the legal experts, and I will. So we have 5 or 6, 7 different jurisdictions coming to the same conclusion. So that's the overview of where we are from the standpoint of ARPA. I've given you where we are on that timeline. And then what I'd like to do is first open it up to questions from my fellow elected officials.
Any questions for Treasurer Matheson, for Steve, from the electeds?
So Steve, just to reaffirm, the email from...
Is your mic on?
Yeah.
So Steve, just to reaffirm, email from one of our county attorneys on November the 4th says each of the executive orders pertains to the federal government and in particular the executive branch, including executive branch agencies. Nothing in them would apply to or be binding on state or local law enforcement. I haven't had an opportunity to look at that January the 10th, but a cursory view of it, would that be consistent today?
That would be consistent.
That's all.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Sheriff. Anyone else?
Just a comment, I guess. I was just thinking that we should probably make the document that Steve was referring to on that part of the public record
Part of the public record?
available to anybody.
Okay. Can certainly do that. Thank